This is a guide to modeling rates in option C. When you set up a meter in option C, by default it will calculate its baseline and sim actual costs using the average total cost per consumption cost calculation method. This method is simple and efficient and uses the following equation to calculate cost. For a more accurate cost calculation method, it's possible to model custom rates in option C. While this requires more setup time, it yields the most accurate cost results. To set up a rate, click the left sidebar and select Rates Groups. Right-click the project item, select New Rate Group. You can name the rate group and select its utility. Click the Add button to add a new rate. Rates can be divided into two types, simple and complex. We'll go through each in turn. First, let's examine a simple electric rate. Name your rate and select Simple from the Rate Type drop-down. If your rate is annually escalated or taxed, select the appropriate box. Click the Rate Details tab. Here you can adjust the effective dates of the rate. If you selected annual escalation or tax in the Rate Options tab, corresponding fields will appear here as well. Finally, you can set the consumption and demand rate and specify a monthly charge. It's also possible to specify a period deviation threshold for the monthly charge. If this option is enabled, monthly charges will be prorated by days wherever the bill period deviation exceeds the specified threshold value. This concludes setting up a simple rate. Now let's create a complex rate. Return to the rate group. To add a new rate, either click the Add button or right-click the rate group and select New Rate. This time, select Complicated Rate under the Rate Type drop-down menu. In addition to the annual escalation and tax options, the option to compare this modeled rate to a contracted minimum rate appears. A Rate Seasons tab has also appeared. Here, we can specify seasons for this rate. Clicking the Season 2 checkbox automatically divides the year into two seasons, summer and winter. More seasons can be added, but these must be manually entered. For bills that straddle seasons, option C can either prorate them or bill based on the read dates. In the Rate Details tab, we can again specify the effective dates and the annual escalation and sales tax options. Next, we can add charges. Options appear under the Add New button. We can add charges for consumption, demand, power factor, as well as a monthly maximum, minimum, or monthly charge. Add a consumption item. Here we can name our charge and select the time of use period. If we entered seasonal rates, we can also select to which season the rate will be applied. Let's create a rate for on-peak kilowatt hours during the summer. In the panel below, we can enter charges. These can be entered as a single charge or as tiered charges. To add a tier, enter the kilowatt hour charge and the amount of kilowatt hours it should apply to. A 0 in the size column indicates all remaining kilowatt hours, or the final tier. It's also possible to add tier thresholds and divide the tiers into multiple groups. Selecting additional time of use periods adds new tabs to the charge. The same rate options can be set for each of these. If we wanted to, we could complete setting up these charges, now including the other time of use periods. We could then add a second charge for winter kilowatt hours and follow the same steps. Instead, let's add a demand item. Right-click the complex rate and select New Demand Item. As with consumption, we can name the charge and select the season and time of use periods. We can also select among demand-specific options, including demand ratchets. In the Build Demand tab, we find more options. We can specify the relationship between billed and metered demand. We can also set the demand ratchets. I'll skip power factor in this tutorial. Instead, let's add a monthly charge for our complex rate. Click Add New or right-click on the complex rate. Select New Max Min Monthly. In this charge item, it's possible to specify a monthly minimum or maximum dollar per kilowatt hour or dollar per kilowatt. It's also possible to set a minimum or maximum total bill. These can be applied both annually or seasonally, and a period deviation threshold can also be set. Let's add seasonal monthly charges. Our electric rate is now complete. The remaining step is to apply it to our meters. Return to the tree view by clicking the left sidebar and selecting Tree View. Select your electric meter and click the Rates and Costs tab. Under Cost Calculation Method, select Utility Rate Schedule. Then click Add to add your rate. A summary of the rate group appears in the right side panel. I removed the simple rate, and we see the remaining seasonal rates for consumption and demand. Our electric meter will now use this rate to calculate baseline and sim actual cost. The same steps may be taken to set up a rate for steam or for any other utilities in your project.